Alright folks, let's talk about elections. The big shebang. The one day, or let's be honest, sometimes longer, where you, the average Joe or Jill, get to play a starring role in this whole democracy thing. Think of it like choosing a restaurant with your friends. Everyone gets a say, and the option with the most votes wins. Except instead of deciding between pizza and tacos, you're choosing the people who make decisions that affect your life. No pressure, right? Elections are the cornerstone of any democracy. They allow citizens to choose their leaders and hold them accountable. Without them, it's not a democracy, it's just a bunch of politicians sitting around saying, "Trust us, we know what's best." And let's be real, that rarely ends well. So, the next time you hear the word election, don't just tune it out. This isn't some boring political jargon. It's your chance to have a say in how your country is run. Now you might think voting is simple. Most votes win, right? Well, not so fast. The process of electing leaders is far more intricate and varied than it appears at first glance. Just like there are different ways to order coffee, black, latte, pumpkin spice monstrosity, there are different ways to run an election. Each method has its own set of rules and implications, much like how each coffee has its own flavor and effect. First up, we have first past the post. Imagine a horse race. It's a straightforward winner-takes-all system. The first horse to cross the finish line wins, even if it's just a nose ahead. This means that the candidate with the most votes in a specific area wins, even if they don't have a majority. In this system, the candidate with the most votes in a specific area wins, even if they don't have a majority. It's a simple and quick method, but it has its drawbacks. It's simple, but some argue it doesn't always represent the overall will of the people. Then there's proportional representation, a system designed to more accurately reflect the voters' preferences. Think of it like dividing a cake. If a party gets 30% of the votes, they get roughly 30% of the seats in parliament. If a party gets 30% of the votes, they get roughly 30% of the seats in parliament. This system tends to lead to more diverse parliaments, with a wider range of voices and perspectives. This system tends to lead to more diverse parliaments, but it can also be a bit more complicated. It often requires coalition governments, which can be both a strength and a weakness. That's the million-dollar question, my friend. Which system is better? The answer isn't straightforward and depends on what you value more in a democratic process. Each system has its pros and cons, and it really depends on what you prioritize in an election. Do you value simplicity and speed, or do you prioritize a more accurate representation of the electorate's diverse views? The choice is yours. Okay, so we know what elections are and how they work, sort of. But what about all the craziness that leads up to it? The months, sometimes even years, of intense campaigning that seem to take over our lives. You know, the rallies, the debates, the constant barrage of political ads. It's like a never-ending circus with each candidate trying to outdo the other. Welcome to the campaign trail, folks, where politicians morph into traveling salesmen, peddling their own brand of political promises. They crisscross the country, making stops in every town and city, hoping to win your vote. They'll kiss babies, shake hands, and tell you exactly what you want to hear. It's all part of the game, a carefully choreographed dance designed to win hearts and minds. Then there are the debates. These are the main events, the showdowns where candidates go head-to-head. Picture two or more politicians standing on a stage, trying to convince you they're the best thing since sliced bread, while simultaneously throwing each other under the bus. It's a spectacle of rhetoric and strategy. It's like a reality TV show, but with higher stakes. Every word, every gesture is scrutinized, analyzed, and debated by pundits and the public alike. And let's not forget the media. They play a huge role in shaping public opinion, reporting on the candidates, and sometimes, let's be honest, adding their own spin to the story. They dissect every moment, turning it into headlines and sound bites. They can make or break a campaign with their coverage, influencing how we perceive the candidates and their platforms. It can be overwhelming. But remember, it's all part of the process. The noise, the drama, the excitement. It's democracy in action. So buckle up, grab some popcorn, and try to enjoy the show. After all, it's not just about choosing a leader. It's about participating in a grand tradition that shapes our future. The election is over, the confetti has settled, or maybe it's just raining outside. And now comes the nail-biting part, counting the votes. This isn't just about speed, folks. It's about accuracy and transparency. Every vote matters. Think of it like counting ballots is like handling evidence at a crime scene. You need to be meticulous, you need to be accurate, and you need to make sure everything is done by the book. Different countries have different ways of counting votes. Some do it electronically, some do it by hand. But the goal is always the same, to get an accurate count and make sure every vote is accounted for. Once the votes are counted, the results are certified by election officials. This is like the official stamp of approval, letting everyone know that the count was fair and accurate. It's a big job, but someone's got to do it. And trust me, these folks take their job very seriously. Section 5, Safeguarding Democracy, the importance of free and fair elections. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the importance of fair elections. Because here's the thing, if people don't trust the process, the whole system falls apart. Imagine going to a restaurant where the chef only serves food to people wearing a certain color shirt. Not cool, right? That's essentially what happens when elections aren't fair. Free and fair elections mean everyone gets a chance to vote, regardless of their race, religion, gender, or political beliefs. It means everyone's vote is counted equally. It means there's no funny business going on behind the scenes. Unfortunately, in some parts of the world, people face obstacles when trying to vote. This can be anything from strict voter ID laws to intimidation at the polls. These are serious issues that undermine the very foundation of democracy. Remember, the right to vote is a fundamental human right. It's something worth fighting for and protecting. Okay, so we've established that voting is important and fair elections are crucial for a healthy democracy. But what does it mean when we say fair elections? It means that every eligible voter should have an equal opportunity to cast their vote without facing unnecessary obstacles. But what happens when there are roadblocks on the way to the ballot box? These roadblocks can take many forms and can be both subtle and overt. Think of it like trying to get into a concert, but the bouncer keeps changing the rules. One moment you think you have everything you need, and the next, you're told there's something else you must do. First, you need a ticket, then you need an ID, then you need to know the secret password. It's frustrating, right? Now imagine this happening when you're trying to exercise your fundamental right to vote. Sadly, this happens in elections too. People are turned away, polling stations are closed, and voters are left feeling helpless. Some people face barriers that make it difficult or even impossible to vote. These barriers can be physical, legal, or even psychological. This can include things like voter ID laws. Imagine needing a special ID just to vote. Sounds crazy, right? But for many, this is a harsh reality, but it's a reality in some places. These laws can disproportionately affect certain groups, making it harder for them to participate in the democratic process. Limited polling places. Imagine having to travel miles and miles just to cast your vote. This is not just an inconvenience, it can be a significant barrier. This can be a major obstacle for people who can't take time off work or afford transportation. For many, the choice becomes voting or earning a day's wage. Intimidation at the polls? Nobody wants to feel threatened when they're trying to vote. This can deter people from even attempting to cast their ballot. But unfortunately, this happens, and it's a serious problem. Intimidation can take many forms, from aggressive questioning to physical presence. These obstacles disproportionately affect marginalized communities, and that's a big problem. When certain groups are systematically disenfranchised, the very foundation of democracy is at risk. We need to make sure everyone has equal access to the ballot box. It's not just about voting, it's about ensuring that every voice is heard and every vote counts. Look, I get it, you're busy, you've got work, family, maybe a goldfish that needs feeding. Who has time for elections, right? But here's the thing, your vote matters. It's your voice, your chance to shape the future of your community and your country. Think of it this way, every vote is like a brick in a wall. One brick alone might not seem like much, but put enough bricks together, and you can build something powerful. When you vote, you're not just choosing a candidate, you're choosing the direction you want your country to go in. Do you want better schools, affordable healthcare, a cleaner environment? These are the things that are at stake in every election. So the next time an election rolls around, don't just sit on the sidelines. Register to vote, do your research, and cast your ballot. Your voice deserves to be heard. So you voted. You survived the campaign ads, the debates, and the endless news cycle. You even managed to find your polling place without getting lost. Congratulations, you've earned yourself a nap. But before you drift off to sleep, here's a thought. Your civic duty doesn't end when you leave the voting booth. In fact, it's just the beginning. Remember those politicians you just voted for or against? Well, they work for you now, and just like any good boss, you need to hold them accountable. This means staying informed about what's happening in your government, contacting your elected officials, and making your voice heard on issues that matter to you. It also means participating in your community, volunteering your time, and engaging in constructive dialogue with people who hold different views. Democracy isn't a spectator sport, folks. It requires active participation from all of us. Let's be honest, elections aren't perfect. They can be messy, complicated, and sometimes downright frustrating. But here's the good news. We can always make them better. Think of it like a recipe. You try it once and it's okay, but then you tweak it, add a little spice, maybe swap out an ingredient or two, and slowly but surely, it becomes something truly delicious. That's what we need to do with elections. We need to keep striving for a system that is fair, accessible, and representative of all people. This means addressing issues like voter suppression, reforming campaign finance laws, and exploring new voting technologies. It's an ongoing process, a constant quest for a more perfect union. But by working together, by listening to each other, and by never taking our democracy for granted, we can create an electoral system that truly reflects the will of the people.